Howdy, and welcome back to Lane Change. I'm Keith Lane, and we're joined today by a good friend and a great man, Nic Taunton. Nick, welcome.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me, Keith.
And I'm glad you're here. If you would share a little bit with the audience, who are you? Where do you live? What do you do? Tell us about you and life and where things are at this point.
Nic Taunton, class of 07 from A&M. I grew up down in Katy, Texas. To Keith and Michelle, had three brothers at the time, and they were both Auburn Tigers, but we all found our way to Texas A&M. There met my wife, Brittany, who is class of 08, and we've had quite an adventure along the way, Keith. But at the current time, we got 4 kiddos, 13 down to 3, Priscilla, Magdalene, Juliana, and Nicholas. And we live here in town, been in College Station now about 11 years.
I was going to ask that question.
And working for the Association of Former Students the whole time. Couple of different roles along the way, but currently get the opportunity to serve as our Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer.
Now, we're going to elaborate on more on that in just a little bit.
Sure.
But for folks who aren't familiar, explain what the Association of Former Students is.
The Association of Former Students is Texas A&M's alumni association.
Okay.
So, Keith, we are of the people, for all Aggies, and they're home on campus.
So you would consider that a nonprofit?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay. All right. And we're going to come back to that. But for folks who are watching or listening, as we do in this podcast, how you ended up at the association and in the role that you're in has been quite a journey.
Sure.
Take us back to the beginning. Just quickly highlight, as you went to college, before you went to college, how did you pick your original professional vector? And let's start there.
It's a good question, Keith, and I think the honest answer is I didn't. I think at that time, 18, thinking about college, I was more excited to come to college and make friends and figure out what that meant. My father was and is an attorney down in Houston, and I had always admired his career along the way. So that was somewhere in the back of my mind that maybe I'd go down that path and become a lawyer. I did end up going down that path, but at 18, I knew I wanted to be an Aggie. I got here, and I came in as a management major. And actually had another great Aggie here in town, Philip Bethencourt, gave me some wonderful advice. I'm sure you know Philip. Mm-hmm. As a freshman, he said, you're going to get involved at Texas A&M through a lot of student organizations and learn management through those experiences. Why don't you pick a more technical degree? Switched to finance and loved it. And it was a great background for me to get a little different view on that side of business.
Sure. So you switched to finance. At that point, where you were going was still law school in the back of your mind.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so just let's fast forward real quickly. You finished undergrad, went on to law school. Where'd you go? And then what was your career start coming out of law school?
Sure. So I graduated December of 07, so I had a little bit of time in which I went abroad, did a little volunteering, then went to University of Texas for law, 3 years there. Graduated 2011, went straight to Dallas to work for a big firm up there in Dallas called Fulbright & Jaworski, went on to become Norton Rose Fulbright.
What kind of law were you doing?
Commercial litigation. So I like to tell people as a young attorney, you work on whatever the partner hands you. But I worked with some amazing attorneys, great people, and loved that firm. And we got to work on a lot of complex cases across the United States.
So as you got into that first professional path, and again, for folks who are watching, with Lane Change, again, our intention is to highlight the things, the places that people start, the choices they make, and then as we all live and experience and succeed, we begin to, our perspective starts to change, right? So walk us through, once you got out of law school, you're in Dallas, you're practicing law, what were the things that you began to experience that you like, and what were the things that you began to experience that maybe you didn't anticipate or that would ultimately fuel a thought process about changing lanes?
Sure. I'm actually going to back up a little bit, Keith. I think when I went to law school, I envisioned that I would become a prosecutor. Was an interested path of mine, becoming a district attorney somewhere.
Wow.
And through some summer internships and whatnot, learned that was maybe not the path for me. And for various different reasons, also had no insight into big law. My father's run a small firm, so my second thought was, if not a prosecutor, then a small firm somewhere. And I had always had in the back of my head that law would not be forever, that there would be something else. There would be a second career of some kind, maybe coming back to be a professor, maybe going into business, but that there would be something else at some point in time. Got to law school and realized that I really enjoyed the big law route. Yes, everyone talks about how it's a grind, and that is true, but the lawyers are operating at an extremely high level. The cases are complex. It's very competitive. All these things that I enjoyed, and so ended up going down that path. But that's not where I started mindset-wise at law school. Okay. Got to Dallas, and the truth of it is, Keith, I was not at a point that I was ready to leave the firm or looking to leave the firm.
Sure.
I was working some pretty good hours.
Bet you were.
There were maybe a few months here and there where I didn't see my wife and 2-year-old because I would get home after they were in bed and I would leave before they got up. And that happened, but that was a challenge. Sure. Make no mistake, as you're
Did you realize before you got into it that would be the price?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So you knew.
I knew what I was getting to.
Okay.
His eyes wide open.
Did she?
And I think she did. I don't think either, you can't really know it until you experience it and what that actually means for your marriage and for your time with your kid, right? Mm-hmm. And you don't know it until you experience it.
I got it.
But we were at the front end of that. I don't know that we had been doing it long enough to really be ground out of it, to be honest. But we had been doing it long enough to know that this is going to be a challenge if we're going to stay on this path.
Right.
And we're going to have to really figure out how to make this work for our family, depending on the things that we value. And I think this is one of these times in my career where I have, in retrospect, Keith, advised people, think about where you want to end up all the way back at 18 or coming into college and whatnot, and start working towards that. Because once you get in it, it's much harder to use your words, to change lanes. You get into it. People at the firm talked about life creep, where you get used to making that kind of money. You get used to the prestige that comes with the fact that people think it's really successful that you're at a big law firm. All those things are true, right? And it's great. But you have to decide on a personal level, what is it that I value most? And that conversation was creeping into our minds, but had not fully formed.
Okay, so fast forward. So how many years were you at the law firm total?
About 3, a little over 3.
Okay, and then when you left the law firm, I'm going to come back and ask a couple of questions about the decision to move. You went from the law firm to the association?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and that involved a relocation as well.
It did.
Okay, I'm going to come back to that. So take us back to the 12 months, 6 months, 3 months. How much time, when did you and your bride start talking about, okay, maybe it's a different direction. Maybe we need to change headings?
So this might be a shocking answer. The answer is about 2 weeks.
2 weeks before you did it, or 2 weeks
before
into the job?
I did it.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
So we were grinding away. We had just bought a home, Keith, that we thought was going to be a 10, 15, 20-year home for us in Dallas. Loved it. Loved the neighborhood. Had just remodeled it, all the fun things, and moved into this home. Had not even unpacked boxes. And I was at this stage where I had been given advice at a big law firm that you are most valuable years between 4 and 6 if you're going to leave. So you got enough experience that you can be helpful somewhere else, but you're not so darn expensive that no one else wants to hire you. So and that's kind of this territory where you need to decide, are you going to lower the shoulder and go for partner, or are you going to look elsewhere?
Got it.
I really liked these people. I really thought at that time, I was like, I might stick it out here, and we'll find a way to make this work for our family. That's still where we were at. And but I wanted to start networking in case open other doors, make sure if that changed, make sure if these hours got to where it wasn't bearable anymore. I had alternatives.
The commitment level was about to have to go to another level.
That's right. So I started networking, and the first phone call I made was to my now boss, Porter Garner, because I had known him as a student from being involved, and said, "Hey, you're the most connected Aggie on the planet. What Aggies do I need to get to know if I ever decide to leave Fulbright?" Right. And he's rattling off some names, this one, that one. These are some great lawyers, and I don't know, about a third of the way through the conversation, he says, "Well, if you're willing to leave Fulbright, why don't you come here?" And I said, "Well, I hope our alumni association doesn't need a litigator. Surely you guys aren't getting sued and need my skill set. What are you talking about?" And he started talking about a fundraising position, and this is no lie, Keith. I told him, I said, I didn't know this was a career path, so you're going to have to explain to me what it is that you're talking about.
Right.
That was on a Friday afternoon, Keith. He asked if I'd come down the next week to talk with him. Drove down on Tuesday, met with him. Some others at the association, had a lot of great conversations. And they called and offered me a job on Wednesday, and I accepted it that day.
Wow. Okay, so Okay, so walk us through that decision-making process. Walk us through, oftentimes when people decide to change lanes, there's a lot of commentary, a lot of chirping. I mean, your social circle, your family, your professional circles.
Sure.
What was the response? Let me, two questions. Was it just you and your bride made a decision that night? They made the offer. You decided that night, this is a done deal. This is too good to pass up. Talk to us about the actual moment of decision and then the ensuing flood of realization of what all was about to get set into motion with change.
Sure. So the truth of it for us, Keith, is that it was previous life experiences before this point that had equipped us to move this quickly on something.
You knew what you were getting into.
I did to a degree, but I also knew I was more refined on what we were looking for.
Got it.
And there were times when I was volunteering abroad. There were times, even back at A&M and what I was involved in, that you have these moments where you're refining what it is that you value most in life. And you're really trying to figure out how to put that into action as you come into your career, right? Early on, right, I'm thinking, well, I got a wife and a kid and I got to provide, and these are the things that society says, but you have all this in the background of, well, but I value service and I value fulfillment and I value making a real difference in people's lives, impact. And knew that was, when I said there was this sort of second career floating around the back of my head, that was there. And it was always intended to be, this is going to be something that's about other people, period, in a sentence. And so when this opportunity arose that Friday afternoon, right, I went home and was like, hey, I'd never really thought about this, but this is something that connects to who we are. We believe in Texas A&M. We believe in the impact it has on our communities and state and world by supporting Aggies. Right. And so we were immediately locked into, this is something that is very service-oriented and already connected to who we are. And that was the initial driver of like, well, this will be deeply fulfilling to us. Wow. It will allow us an opportunity to create a life in College Station that we're excited to think about at this stage. We had one daughter at the time. And that's why it didn't take long to make a decision. Now, all the rest of the stuff, yes, there was tons of chirping and tons of people who, and including my own family with some raised eyebrows of like, you're cutting your salary by 60 or 70% right. to go do this. It might have been more than that. It was, all the questions and the chirping were around things that were not associated to why we were making the decision. I obviously wasn't making the decision.
In many ways, you feel like it's fair to say that the predicate to, or the actual process of, or the effects after a big decision of that level, most people, is it safe to say, in your experience, most people did not understand really why y'all were making that decision?
They thought I was crazy. Why would you give up the prestige? You worked so hard to get here. You put in all this time, all this effort, all these hours. You're making all this money. It's a big deal to be at Fulbright, and it is. Why would you give all that up?
And yet you knew in here and you knew in here.
Oh yeah, we didn't hesitate, and I haven't looked back once.
Wow. Okay, it's funny you talk about making an impact. It makes me think of Rick Rigsby. Yeah, I'm
sure
you heard him many times. Are you make an impact? Okay, so let's fast forward. So what do you do now? I want to be a good steward of our audience's time and of your time. Talk to us about what you've done since you arrived. If you would, share some reflections as you look back on your career up to that decision point. Talk about the satisfaction. Talk about how much impact you're making. I mean, I know what the AFS does is profound.
Sure.
But talk us through post-decision to the present.
Sure. A couple things. I think that, I very quickly realized that I enjoyed big law because I'm competitive and I like to work hard and I enjoyed going toe-to-toe with somebody. But that once that switch flipped and I was at a place like the association that is 100% about people and relationships and making a difference in someone else's life, that it was instant fulfillment for me and coming in. And I came in a fundraising role and got to work with Aggies whose objective was to help other Aggies. And it was really that simple. And they were doing it through their own generosity, through their own hard work. And that's a powerful place to be in between a benefactor and a beneficiary and the difference that it's making. And our job is, people think about fundraising as sales, and I tell them all the time, it's not, it's service. It is 100% service. And until you get in it, you may not understand what I mean, but it is all about helping one person connect with helping another person. And so came into that and immediately started realizing how much fulfillment and joy that would bring into not just my life, but our family's life. This matters to Brittany as much as it, or more than it matters to me, right? That the time I spend is spent helping another person. And so the association has provided that for 11 years, the opportunity to be a part of that for 11 years, a variety of different ways. And this is going to sound like a small thing, Keith, but I've got a drawer in my desk at the association, and I started it very early on. That is full, hundreds, if not into the thousands at this point, of handwritten thank you notes. Wow! And the first one struck me because I just wasn't expecting it, right? And I'd spent all this time in law school and at the law firm, and I'd never seen a handwritten. Nobody wrote me a handwritten thank you note ever. And now that's part of life. It's students, it's donors, it's former students, people who are expressing their gratitude for the work that we do at the association. And yes, that's small, but it is an indicator of the good that we put out there. Yes, sir.
Impact. Well, what a profound story that I can't thank you enough for sharing. Currently you're the head of fundraising for the association?
Currently as Chief Operating Officer, I am accountable for all of our internal operations at the association. So everything from engaging the Aggie Network clubs and classes and making sure we can put muster on as many places around the world as we can, to supporting our students on campus day in and day out and everything in between.
So let's close with your best advice to folks who are out there who are earlier in their career. Maybe they've already made a couple of changes, but they still haven't found their calling yet. What's your best advice to folks who are listening to this and are reflecting on your commentary and are trying to find the path that they've been called to pursue?
I don't know that I could sum all that up real quickly into one piece, but the first thing that came into my mind was be willing to jump. Mm-hmm. As scary as it may sound, if you know your values, then your decisions will be clear. That's something that Porter says a lot, and I believe firmly in it. If you know your values, your decisions will be clear. So hone in on those things that you truly value most in life, and that will guide each of these decisions along the way until you find that thing that you connect most with. I also think, and I alluded to this earlier, think about what you want your life to actually look like. What you want your family life to look like, where you want to spend your time in your faith or with your church or in volunteers or with friends, not just work. Think about the whole package and how you want it to look. And then start to make career decisions that push you in that direction. Because otherwise your career will take you wherever your career wants you to go.
If you know your values, your path will be clear.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to remember that. Well, Nic, thank you. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you for being here today.
Thanks
Thank you all
for
for tuning in. Join us again on our next episode of Lane Change. Gig 'em. God bless.
Gig 'em and God bless.